Hi.
Welcome to our life seminar for Wednesday, March. It's not March, it's the other M month. It's May 25th, 2022. I am Samantha Adams, one of the assistive technology instructors from the Society for the Blind. And I am pleased to welcome today Aser Tolentino, who used to be in another version of himself, used to be an assistive technology instructor at Society for the Blind. So Aser has agreed to come back and talk to us about life after Society for the Blind. What is there after? What was there before? And some other little tips and tricks and surprises for you. So welcome, Aser.
Hello.
Hello. Let's start by telling everybody a bit about yourself. You were an instructor at Society for the Blind during what time period?
From, I believe, April Fool's Day on 2015 to the very end of March 2020. So just at the start of the pandemic.
Oh, wow. April Fool's Day seems to be a pivotal. I think I know another technology instructor who started on April Fool's Day too. That's kind of funny. Not me. And you are visually impaired.
That is right. I was born with glaucoma, and that has developed into a loss of everything except for a hint of light perception.
But it deteriorated over time, correct?
It did. So up until senior year of high school, I had functional vision, at least sufficient to read 20-point font in both eyes. That remained in my left eye until 2011, a year after law school.
Okay. So there you go. You just held out the little carrot. So you went to high school. I know that you lived some of your youth offshore. You lived in Japan.
I lived for approximately 4 years in the Philippines and 3.5 years on Okinawa. So some of my primary and secondary schooling was done in Department of Defense schools.
Wow. And then you've completed your high schooling in the Sacramento area.
Thereabouts. Travis Air Force Base.
Yeah, okay. Okay. And then you went off to college at UC Davis.
That's right. I majored in political science and history.
And then after that, you went off to law school?
Yes, also at UC Davis. And then after graduating, I took the California bar exam and was admitted to the state bar in December of 2010.
And that brings us to when you left Society for the Blind in 2020. That's when you were doing you started doing some lawyering again, right?
That is right. So I am now a practicing landlord-tenant attorney, which means that I provide legal advice to tenants in usually residential rental situations who are experiencing either a lack of maintenance that leads to uninhabitable conditions or who are dealing with harassment either by fellow tenants or their landlord who need assistance to recoup some of the harm that they've suffered. Usually that means moving out and occasionally suing their landlord or going through some other process to settle accounts, as it were.
Okay, so you work for, as I learned yesterday, a private firm based out of San Francisco.
That is right. We are an entirely virtual legal practice, so our attorneys are based mostly in California, though we have one litigator who actually is he's out of state, but all of our work is conducted using Microsoft Teams and other uh, collaboration platforms to uh, provide services to folks all over the state.
Okay, I'm just going to pause. If you're not muted and that's your background noise, can you please mute? Okay, so how many attorneys work for your firm?
Let's see. I believe the current number is 8.
And then paralegals as well?
Yes. We have about a 1-to-1 ratio, I think.
Wow. Okay. Are you having fun?
Oh yeah, it's well, fun might be mischaracterizing it a bit. It's fulfilling work and can often be extremely rewarding. Sometimes that is fun, in that you're uh, achieving something and testing your skills, but it's always tempered by the fact that in any of these situations, you're only ever there because someone had to go through a horrible experience, and the sense of accomplishment is derived from making sure that they are made whole, or at least as much as possible, and that the people responsible are held accountable.
How do people ever find you guys? So if I'm in a situation where life is less than perfect or ideal, and I got problems with my landlord, I wouldn't even know where to begin, who I would talk to. I'd stomp my feet, I'd cry, but that's not going to get me very far. Where do people go? Is there like a tenants' rights organization that says, hey, you need to go talk to these guys?
So there are a lot of tenant rights organizations that we have interfaced with over the years that will occasionally send folks over to us. Sometimes other attorneys who have clients that are experiencing landlord tenant issues, who have interacted with us or with different members of our team in one forum or another, will refer folks to us. Mostly, though, people find us using Google.
Oh, there we go. So technology can solve some of your problems. Oh, that's a nice segue. You'd think I planned that. I didn't. Honest, I didn't. Okay. So uh in your spare time, uh for fun and sometimes profit, you like to play with video games.
Um, I do play, or did, play a lot of games growing up, and do to some degree now, mostly in the mobile gaming space. But most of my current preoccupation is with uh, running, writing, and designing for different tabletop role playing game engines. And that occasionally spills over into professional work or uh, accessibility consulting and uh, contributions to mainstream, or as mainstream as role playing games get, uh, publishers.
Okay. And then you have a podcast?
Yes, my wife and I record various games to sort of demo, and we also uh, interview game designers who are usually in the process of crowdfunding new projects, or who are in the process of promoting new releases. And that's been something that we've done on and off for about 8 years now.
This meeting is being recorded by the. So when you do this video podcast, Zoom, you put that production together yourselves?
Yes. Nowadays, with my wife and I working, virtually full time, we have off offloaded some of that to freelance editors, but uh,
Zoom meeting.
for the
Window.
bulk of
No alert.
our time in the space, we ourselves did all of the recording and editing and post production.
Wow. Uh, okay. And if anybody was interested in finding your podcast, what's it called?
Well, the one that is most active at the moment is a um, that's actually not really safe for work. So I would rather you not look for our podcast. Let's put it that way.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. All right. So back in the old days when you were my instructor, I would walk into class and we'd sit down and it'd be I and usually another person. And the first thing out of your mouth was always, so what's new? And so I would give you my version of what's new, which was usually not so much. And then I'd turn it around and you would go to tell me your coolest new little keyboard or headphones, uh, whatever Megan let you buy, pretty much. So it's been a while. What's new, Aser? What's going on with your coolest new little things
Well,
or big things?
now I've got to figure out what I said, approximately 24 hours ago.
It doesn't matter.
So,
It can be different. It's
um,
okay.
so last time I believe I went on at some detail about a new audio interface that I've been playing with, an Audient Evo 4, which is a nice little inexpensive way of routing different microphones into your computer. Sort of converts that analog signal uh, from a microphone that uses an XLR port into something that you just connect into any laptop or desktop or iPhone, as the case may be. The little fancy feature of the Evo 4 is that if you give it a sample of audio, the levels at about where your uh, quietest and loudest range would fall, it will try to dynamically set the gain for each channel, so you can take some of the guesswork out of that if you are in a particular hurry. That's always kind of handy, especially if you're in a situation where you don't have an ability to read the VU meters and such, or where you don't want to have to deal with talking VU meters. Um, Aside from that, I've been playing with the newest. I guess they've changed their name from Aftershocks to Shocks. Their newest bone conduction headphones, which are just sort of an incremental upgrade over the old Aeropex design. And those have been pretty neat. I had a good experience with their warranty support department, actually. So I was pleased to see that they stand by their products, even if you're coming in like the very end of your support window. Um, I think I had a transducer failure on an old set of Aeropex headphones that I think were about 2 years old, and they replaced them with a new set.
So the new ones that you have, do they look like the old ones? They still wrap around the back of the head and then drop down over the in front of the ear?
Yes. The one change that's notable is that it adopts the charging port configuration of the OpenCom headset and increases the battery life to 10 hours. There's supposed to be a new kind of uh, uh, transducer that increases, or driver that increases uh, the bass that they can produce. So the sound is a little fuller. And they also have quick charge. I forget the exact specs, but it's you charge it for a couple minutes and you get uh, a few hours of playtime out of them, which is always handy. I
Wow.
think the
So
battery life, I think the battery
by
life's up to
comparison,
10 hours as well.
wow. And by comparison, my old ones are about a 6 hour battery life, and I have no idea how long they take to charge, but I would guess about 45 minutes to get anything really. Okay.
Yeah.
Do they stay on? Because I wouldn't walk around with mine on. Maybe it's just my head's too small. I don't know.
Um, they uh they do fit pretty well. My head's on the larger size. So if that is a concern, trying the mini version is probably advisable.
Hmm. And for those who aren't familiar with bone conduction headphones, they actually just rest on your jaw bone, and it transmits the sound through the bones, so your ears are wide open, so you can kind of hear what's going on around you.
Very handy
Okay.
for use with navigation apps and uh, tools like that, where you want access to spoken input, but getting run over is also a priority. Getting not run over is a priority.
Yeah, or when you don't want to tune your honey out entirely.
Well, there's transparency mode for that.
Okay. And what's transparency mode? And what's
So,
that?
a growing number of headphone manufacturers have adopted a technology called transparency mode, or some variation on that, some other adjective that they can trademark. Um, and the technology essentially takes the input from the noise canceling microphones that uh, are usually used to tell the headphones or the earbuds what sounds to take out of the audible range, so that they produce a signal that cancels them out, so you don't hear them. And instead, they send that audio directly into the headphones. So if you sort of squeeze the stem on AirPods Pro, or put your hand over one of the ear cups on Sony noise canceling headphones, they will actually pipe in the audio from the outside world and let you converse with someone, even though you're wearing noise canceling headphones. It's supposed to be more convenient than just powering them off and taking them off, or like adjusting them to be able to free up an ear and listen directly.
So, so if you're listening to a book and you want to hear something going on around you, if you just use one of those two methods, depending on the kind, and the book keeps reading, does the other noise come in about the same volume
It
or louder?
depends on the particular product. Some of them will sort of turn the audio down as the external audio comes in. I believe that's how it works on the Bose ANC 700, which I used for quite a while. On the the Sony's and the AirPods Max, and AirPods Pro, I believe it just passes the audio straight through, so you're still hearing the uh, music or whatever audio you're playing at the same volume.
Okay.
Because some headphones tend to rely on um, some of the noise canceling technology to produce some of their low end, some of the body um, of the sound that you're hearing, or the music that you're hearing, might change based on whether you turn transparency mode on or off.
Okay. Uh, and then there is another new kind of technology with headphones that uh, what's it open? What's the term? Is
Well,
that this, or is that different, or is that it's not different?
So it is different in a sort of way. It's You have two different um, new sort of awareness, um, promoting uh, wearable audio technologies. You have the uh, the Bose frames sort of implementation of a directed sort of micro speaker array that uh, is in, installed into a sunglasses frame, and that basically will direct audio uh, toward your ear in a very tight beam, and will allow you to keep your ears open and listening to the outside world. Those sorts of solutions are sort of like a middle ground between bone conduction uh, and normal headphones, in that you're not relying on um, having a speaker placed right up against your ear, but at the same time, it is still using air to transmit um, the sound waves to reach your inner ear. Um, the advantage is that some people who are uncomfortable with bone conduction technology uh, will find it easier to listen to. Um, but the issue is that it is more difficult to hear in loud environments, because it is having to compete with all of the other things around you in a more direct way than the bone conduction headphones. Uh, that said, bone conduction headphones can also be drowned out by noise in the environment, because the the simple fact is that the sound pressure levels of very loud um, uh, very loud sounds in the environment are simply going to overpower what the headset can produce.
Yeah, they don't work on an airplane at all. They're terrible
Oh yeah,
on an
absolutely.
airplane. Yeah.
Uh, so it really is a matter, just like anything else, that uh, you work with in the realm of assistive technology, where you have to find the right tool for the right job.
So remember the old days, you just take a pair of headphones and plug them into your Walkman and you were good to go. I can't, I don't even know what kind of brain imagines the problems with those perfectly serviceable old-fashioned headphones and then uh, tries to solve problems. I can't even imagine what the next set of headphones would look like. Do you have, I mean, you're kind of in the know. Have you read anything or heard anything about what's going to come next in headphones? I can't even imagine.
Well, the current next big thing that everyone is trying to promote is spatial audio, where you try to create a sound field which is more three-dimensional. You'll get a lot of promotion from Apple and other tech-focused companies about how they can sort of simulate the surround sound experience using normal headphones. Uh, and it's sort of neat to have that kind of broadening of the soundstage. That really is more like a sort of accent feature, as opposed to something that transforms the way you interact with technology, but will probably be more relevant to folks who are doing things like virtual reality or potentially augmented reality.
Yeah, I think I heard something about some books being produced too, almost like a movie production. I don't remember where I read that. That would take advantage of that same sort of thing.
Oh yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
Definitely that's something that folks in the uh, dramatization field would find useful. And of course, there are always more and more people who are learning to mix for things like Dolby Atmos. So those skills are looking for applications.
Mm-hmm. How about keyboards? What's going on in your world with keyboards?
Well, speaking of another area where you would think that this was a problem that was solved long ago,
Yeah.
there every it seems like every week or every month, companies are coming out with new keyboards that are supposed to make you more productive or make you a better gamer or uh, keep you from developing repetitive stress injuries. Most of the keyboards I'm currently using are from a company called Keychron. They make mechanical keyboards, sort of um, in the $50 to $100 range. They're uh, get to run mechanical switches, so the one of the more common types. And although it's something that I've never messed with, they are uh, hot swappable key switches and key caps, so you could customize the board however you want. They're they're not the fanciest, but they're sort of fulfill that desire for having more tactile feedback in your keyboards. Um, at the start of the pandemic, I picked up a Logitech, um, what is that, a K860, their Ergo keyboard, to try to be a little better about ergonomics. That didn't last. I just cannot type using one of those.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. Have you, do you talk to your students about the difference between mechanical and dome switch keyboards?
I guess it depends if it comes up. I wouldn't say regularly. So maybe explain a little bit about that.
So the difference between a what's called a membrane keyboard, which is what most people would consider a normal keyboard, and a tactile or mechanical keyboard, is that once upon a time, in order for you to type on a keyboard, you would use or when you struck a key, it would move down the stem and then activate an actual mechanical switch to actuate the key press. And that is a very uh, like I said, a tactile process. So you can feel the key actually engage the switch, and uh, when you've struck the key. A membrane keyboard basically instead has um, a key that just sort of rides on top of a dome, and when the key comes down, the dome comes in contact with two contacts on a board and completes a circuit. That design is far more efficient and more to the point, cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that finds its way into a lot more devices. It's also usually more compact, and so it sort of has taken over in most devices. But you still can find laptops with mechanical keyboards. And
Pretty sweet. Answer call.
oh, one moment.
Oh, is that
That is me.
that was you? I won't ask you to mute.
Yeah, I had not thought that anyone could actually call me on that line. You learn something new every day.
Of course you do.
Um,
Even you.
yes.
Okay, So there are
So
some laptops that do have mechanical keyboards, but
there are
nothing.
yeah, there are some laptops that do have mechanical keyboards. Typically, that's a harder sell for a lot of folks because uh, people are very particular about the the feel of a mechanical keyboard, and uh, they'd rather just use an external one. But
Mhm.
when you're dealing with uh, computers in a certain uh, demographic, or with a target market, they will produce them with mechanical keyboards.
Okay. That's a
But
great explanation. I've never heard anybody explain exactly. I just know that I like a mechanical because it gives me that feedback and I can type way faster.
um,
Uh,
yeah, generally it is mostly about that tactile feedback. Um, or if you're using Cherry MX Blue switches or their equivalent in the various key switch systems, you want to make a very loud sound that will drive everyone around you crazy.
okay. All right. You use Braille gadgets too, right?
Yes. So I uh, learned Braille when I was in second and third grade. So it's been something that's been with me for uh, quite a while. Back then, uh, I don't know if anyone's ever used a Braille and Speak, but that was the first sort of Braille PDA device that I worked with. I think that was Blazy Engineering, but
Yep,
my
it
my
was.
assistive technology history is uh,
It is
sometimes a
because
bit spotty.
I had to type and speak. Yeah.
And where the Braille and Speak, one of its standout features was it had a serial port connector to which you could connect a floppy drive, um, and then export your documents. Uh, I don't know, to another Braille and Speak because it was all in Braille.
We're
So
aging ourselves.
yep. So
I had to type and speak too.
after that came things like the Braille Light, which I sort of missed out on, which I think was the the Braille device of choice in when I was in high school. When I was in college, I went to the Braille Note, and so that was um, Humanware, and uh, pretty much stuck with their devices through law school. Eventually, though, I did when we did tech evaluations at Society, I mostly worked with Freedom Scientific and HIMSS devices, and ultimately, when I started uh, needing a Braille display to do things like proofread documents in my current work, I went with a Q Braille 40, which is the HIMSS display, which has modifier keys and function keys that allow you to perform most functions that you're familiar with on a laptop or on your iPhone without having to learn the specific key combinations like you would on a Focus or on a Brilliant.
So it's you plug it into your laptop.
Yes, it has a USB-C connection, and then it can also connect with, I believe, 6 Bluetooth devices simultaneously. So it
So
works
you
just
can
like
have
it
your
works just like your
laptop and
Bluetooth
your
keyboard.
phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So mine's connected to my work laptop, my personal laptop, and a MacBook over Bluetooth, and then an iPhone and an iPad, and then my audio production computer by USB.
That's all. Huh? Okay. And does it have any memory on its own where you can save any
So
files to?
it has an SD card slot, so it'll support
Okay.
a 32 gig SD card, and it does have a a notepad and daisy reader function. So that's something that's pretty common in braille displays of the current generation.
Okay.
As I understand it, the Brailliant has a bit more in the way of daisy reading capabilities, but it sort of requires a bit more training than I was, sort of prepared to pursue at the moment.
Got it. So, and I think yesterday you mentioned another Braille device you have, another keyboard.
Yes, so there's a company from Europe that produced a keyboard called the Hable One, which is an interesting form factor. It's meant to be carried and used in both hands, sort of held in front of you, rather than put down on a table. So it's instead of the normal configuration of the Perkins 6-dot keyboard, they are in a vertical configuration, sort of like the on-screen Braille entry that you would have on an iPhone. And what that means is that you can, you can use it without a flat surface, and it does something similar to the Q Braille in that it can do the translation on the device. So as far as the phone or the computer is concerned that it's connected to via Bluetooth, it is just a keyboard. And so when you do when you're typing on the Hable, you can type in contracted Braille, and then every time you hit space, it will provide the correct contractions to whatever device you're inputting text into. So it is a very handy device for typing, longer form content while on the go, which is something.
So you mean you can type the contraction for the word "the," and then the word "the" will appear on your
Yes.
phone in your text message if you're doing that.
Yes. So as soon as you hit space, it'll type the word "the."
And I'm trying to visualize this, holding it with two hands and typing, and I'm having a hard time. So are you using your thumbs?
So it is the key, when you hold the device, you hold it with your hands on either end. It's the size of an iPhone, and the way that you, with your hands on either end, your fingers curl towards
Underneath.
towards one another on the back of the device. And on the back of the device, you have dots 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then two keys, the dot 7 and dot 8 keys for backspace and space. And all of the commands that would be represented by swipes are performed by combinations of the 6 dots in either the 7 or 8 key.
Oh wow, that makes my brain hurt.
It takes a few attempts to sort of conceptualize, but once you do, it's actually very easy to navigate. It works. You can toggle quick nav on and off using it, and then move around the screen, activate all of the iPhone functions, and they've actually built in some shortcuts that are specific to the Hable that will activate certain functions on the phone. So like if you hold down dot 2 for a second, it will bring up the app switcher. Or if you hold down dot 3, it will activate the magic tap gesture, things like that.
But it doesn't give you any refreshable Braille display. It's only for input or navigation.
Yes, so it is positioned as sort of a competitor to the Orbit Writer, which people might be a little bit more familiar with. So it's something that I think was released in Europe in the uh, latter half of 2021, and that the company sort of brought to CSUN this year in search of distributors.
Wow. Again, a device that I never even imagined. Okay. Anything else about Braille?
No, that would be about it. I have a View Plus Columbia, which is pretty much a standard Braille embosser of the ilk that's remained largely unchanged since say the 80s. It is a little bit more advanced in that View Plus is sort of known for tactile graphics, so it does have a little finer resolution to do things like that, and it is equipped with an Ethernet port and has so it can be a networked printer, which is kind of neat. And there is actually an add-on that they provide that is essentially a Raspberry Pi that acts as a print server, but it means that the embosser can be made basically AirPrint compatible, so you can print to it from your phone. That's kind of cool.
I have to ask, have you ever used a slate and stylus?
I learned Braille using a slate stylus.
Wow. So I knew people who could go to college and take all their notes on slate and stylus. Could you do that?
Nope.
No, you weren't fast enough to do that.
No. Watching me work with a slate and stylus is like watching, a stonemason chisel into a wall. It's
Okay.
not at all fast. I'll gradually increase speed as I go, but that also means my accuracy will probably start to suffer. Is that I'm just getting more impatient. It's not that I'm getting better at it.
I got it. Yeah. I always think of Braille as Alzheimer's prevention. If you can learn Braille frontwards and then you learn it backwards, wow.
Hey, now I'm just going to have to interject there, because when I was in high school, my friends, they were sighted. And so they would have one of the little plastic slate and styluses, and they'd be under their desk with the slate and stylus on their lap, and you could hear pop, 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 pop. And the teacher never knew what was going on, but they were writing me letters. and I did take notes with a slate and stylus during college. Just saying. Yeah,
Wow.
I used to be super fast.
You're never going to get Alzheimer's.
I already started.
No, I tell you, no.
Something that is kind of cool. I don't have one personally, but a new sort of take on a practical use for Braille is a new gadget called a Versa Slate. Have you played with one of those?
No, but I've read about them. Do tell. Jill.
Oh, is that the one where you write I can't use it. My brain won't work that way. It's super weird. I cannot do it. I've tried. And my brain, as soon as it gets the slate and stylus in my hand, it's automatically, right to left. I'm weird. I get it.
Yeah. So, well, the cool thing about the Versa Slate is that, you just, it's refreshable. So, you type, you write whatever message that you want on it. But then you can, you push a button and it sort of resets. So
it's kind of like that's what I was thinking, the Braille version of an Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's Braille. O&M, do you use any of those navigation mapping apps?
I use Good Maps and Nearby Explorer before it, and then Soundscape from time to time, just to mess around with. And that's the principal reason why I first investigated Aftershocks headphones. Was I can finally justify buying these.
There you go. And I remember you were playing with a case for your iPhone. I got one recently for running, so the kind that goes around your forearm so that your phone would stay. You didn't have to hold your phone to get access to it while you were walking.
Yeah, I always found a wearable case like that preferable when using a GPS app or something.
Yeah.
Because that way you could reliably count on it both being exposed enough to get a GPS signal consistently, and also for the compass to point in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And on the issue of O&M, you use a guide dog now.
Yes. So I've been working with Dixie for a little over 3 years now. I guess 3.5 years.
But pre-Dixie, you were playing with different canes, I remember too.
Yes, I played with a whole bunch of different canes because I don't know. I was always stubborn and thought, the sure the NFB straight fiberglass canes are great, but what other tools are out there that could be more useful, or that could facilitate my laziness.
I guess you haven't looked into canes anymore since Dixie, though.
No, it really hasn't been as big a priority. So I've stuck with just folding aluminum.
Okay, and with Dixie, your only technology would be the AirTag.
Yes, I use an AirTag to make sure that I know where Dixie is. Also, if she's being stubborn and not coming when called, I can just push the button and she will show up to make the noise stop.
I didn't know that Dixie was stubborn like that. Ha! Ha! Well, Dixie must be related to Lotto, because as soon as I call him, he just stands stone still, and he knows he's not. If I don't move my collar, she can't find me. And then he waits till I go to the cookie cabinet.
Exactly.
If I don't go get a cookie, he's not moving.
Yeah, I've had the same exact reaction. Or sometimes I call her and she holds still, and then if I move towards where I'm pretty sure she is, then she'll respond because she thinks, oh no, I gave myself away somehow. I better act like I'm was just delayed somehow.
Do well.
Yep.
You can teach a dog new tricks.
Oh, funny. And then, sorry.
Oh no, go on.
Then if we circle around to fill the circle of all of the main subjects that we teach at Society for the Blind, so we move to independent living skills. Do you cook? Do you use things in the kitchen? Anything new? So back in the old days, you're the one that got me to buy a Bluetooth activated meat thermometer. I remember buying that pretty darn quick on Amazon because it was on sale, because you knew. And you used to have the Instapot that was controlled by Bluetooth, but they don't make it anymore.
Yeah, so that was pretty neat back when Instapot was the latest and greatest. So we still use that from time to time.
Stick the swab up your nose.
It's great because
on both nostrils.
you can
and then
make great ribs with that.
Hang on a second, Aser. Whoever is talking, you're not muted. Something probably about a swab up the nose. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Aser.
So yeah, that makes great ribs. And brisket. Brisket in about I think 3 or 4 hours, as opposed to 24.
Yep.
So that's pretty neat. We have a one of the countertop smart ovens, the one from Innova, um, which is pretty neat because it does have a heat thermometer built into it, and it uses steam, so you can achieve the same sort of results that you get from like sous vide. You don't overcook meat.
And the app is accessible?
Yes.
Cool.
Takes some fiddling about, but
Mm.
I've managed to get it to work. And then one of the tried and true talking microwaves. Most of the living skills, techniques are still just the standard stuff that I sort of half learned and probably have forgotten most of by now. But as far as the other parts of the home, we do use a robot vacuum, just to make sure that some parts of the house are vacuumed some of the time. And we also use a lot of smart lighting around the house, both to make sure that lights are controllable. If we happen to need to make sure all of lights off are in the around the house or something like that. But also, in my case, to make sure that I know whether the lights are on or off. And I can just tell Siri to turn all the lights off, or in the case of most of the rooms around the house that aren't recording spaces, we use motion detectors to identify when someone is in the room, and then the lights will come on and will stay on until 5 minutes after they leave.
Cool. Well, are there questions out there in student land or other
Hi,
people
this is
land?
Kyan. I have a question.
Go for it.
I was curious about your, do you have a sound studio?
So sound studio would be overhyping it.
Okay.
What we have some acoustic treatment in one of our offices, and a lot, a fair number of various audio recording gadgets. But it's mostly just what is necessary to create a semi neutral sounding space.
Yeah, I was just curious how you isolate all the leaf blowers and everything from your background.
Leaf blowers are a bit of an issue. There's actually one right now.
But we don't hear it.
Yeah,
So
hearing it all.
I have a my current setup right now is there's a Rode NTG5 shotgun mic that's running into a micro and preamp, and then from that it goes through to a DBX 286, and there's a noise gate that is probably what's catching most of the noise, and then of course much of the heavy lifting is done by Zoom. But for the most part, when working with a podcast, I would use something like, I used to use Acusonus's plugins, but they were bought by Meta recently. So there's the Isotope plugin suite, which I believe Randy works with, that has a lot of good denoise stuff in it for when you're working in post.
Okay, so is that more important than the acoustical insulation?
Oh no, acoustical installation is far and away the better way to go. You want the cleaner the signal is before it goes into the computer, the better. But most of the time when you're in a home recording situation, at least when you're not when you don't have a dedicated space. You fall back on those sorts of techniques because of the nature of our podcast and the fact that we record 4 or 5 different people in 4 or 5 different locations. Usually we can't control their recording environments to nearly the level that we would like, so we end up having to use post production methods anyway. So that sort of is our excuse for not taking more time and more effort to insulate our spaces. But it's certainly easier if you have a space that will be yours for the foreseeable future, or that you don't owe a security deposit for. Because a lot of methods that would be that would be more viable for acoustic insulation are things that will definitely eat into that security deposit.
I have a question.
Yeah, I was considering building out in a shed in the backyard.
Yeah, so if you build out a shed and build out something with a false floor, and then actually pour insulation or use fiberglass insulation, that's the best way to do it. But it's going to be expensive and or hot.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I have a
Thank
question.
Oh.
It's Bridget, Sam. I'm Sam's student. I have a podcast, but I'm still fairly new to it, so I don't know all the tricks and stuff like that. Is there like a recommended maybe person that you might like, a tutorial or something on YouTube that you recommend, like trying to learn some tricks and stuff like that on how to make your podcast better, like you said, with the sound, and also like editing? I need help with editing. I think that that's one of the things that I'm okay with, but I feel like I want to do better. And my so do you have any recommendations or any do you have any videos where you kind of help with that? Or
let's see, I believe that my wife may have put together a quick and dirty guide on editing using Audacity. I use Reaper, so there is a podcast called Reacast that sort of walks you through the basics of editing using Reaper. Reaper is it's supposed to be a 60-day trial, but it never actually shuts off. So if you could use it indefinitely for free.
Hey, you can evaluate it like forever.
Yeah. So yeah, they are not big on actually forcing you to pay for it, but it's a $60 license. I've always thought that it was a remarkably powerful piece of software for what it for the cost, and there's a sizable community of blind and visually impaired users who are on a mailing list for that, which I think it's terrific software.
what was that video you said that helps like give you a step-by-step with Reaper?
So it's a podcast called Reacast, Reacast. And then there is actually there are actually a couple of courses on how to use Reaper. I think Mystic Access does one that you have to pay for. Cavi, which is an organization that did a lot of IT related training, released some of their material that they'd recorded back in like 2016, 2017 on how to record with Reaper. Some of that stuff is a little outdated, but it's still generally applicable. And I believe there's actually a Reaper accessibility wiki that walks you through how to use the program from start to finish.
And if I've already started my podcast through Anchor, can I still use Reaper, or do I have to make a whole new
a whole new channel?
No, I mean, if you well, what do you use to record and edit, or do you use Anchor for
I
everything?
use Anchor for that.
Okay. Well, I would, you can always port your podcast to, something like Podbean or Libsyn. Uh, Podbean has a free tier, and I think Libsyn starts at $5 a month. And one of the services they provide when you set up a podcast is they can actually, you can point their, uh, you can point your uh, old RSS feed to that new RSS feed, and it will actually just take all of the content and move it over.
Okay. Kind of like when you import like an outside source to Anchor, like you could export it to and then put it into that program.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So,
and that stuff we can also explore, Bridget, too. And Pete Gustin has a lot of really great informational stuff on YouTube and everything about how he gets his sound. I mean, of course, he's got a really nice tricked out studio, but he's got a lot of little tips and tricks about, how he gets his sound and how he cheaply got his sound when he was first starting out. And a lot of it is microphone. And you don't have to pay.
That was going to be my next question.
A huge amount for your mic, but
right. So, I have a microphone, and it came with one of those like sound. What is that thing called on the front that you don't have to use it, but it's there. I took mine off. I used to have it, but it just kept getting in my way. Yeah,
a pop screen. Yeah.
That thing kept getting in my way. I have, what is this? I don't even know what this brand's called. It's called Skitsley. I don't know. My cousin helped me find it, but it works fine. I have it sitting on my desk. I don't have it mounted on my desk because that kept getting in my way too. So but I also took that thing out because it was just, I don't know how well that works, but it was just getting in my way, and I just like to have my mic put away when I'm not using it.
So yeah, the trick, pop filters can be helpful, or you can learn to work without one, because I know a lot of people who, for instance, work with a lot of written work that has to be read, so like audiobook narrators or news readers, they can't, have a windscreen in front of them while they're working. So a lot of what you'll need to develop, when you're doing things like hosting a show where you have to have access to content like that, is just working on mic technique so that you don't breathe at the microphone. So one thing that folks will do is they'll move the microphone so that the capsule is still pointed at you, but is off to one side, for example. The trick, if you can't see that well, is making sure that you are directing your voice so that it is still within the pickup cone of the microphone that you're using. And then, some folks instead will switch to using something like a shotgun microphone, where it doesn't have to be close to you, and is out of the way. So like my microphone right now is like a foot away from me.
Yeah, and I can still, it's really good because I can still hear you like as if it's right by your mouth.
Yeah, so that's one of the benefits of having a microphone that's that has a super cardioid pickup pattern, is that it's very directional. But it's all a matter of just using learning how the microphone you have, how it works, and the sweet spot for recording. The other thing that people will do if they're using a dynamic microphone, for example, is that they will use a boom mount, and just point it at the corner of their mouth, but still have it out of the way so that it's not interfering with their movement or picking up any of the plosives that make the podcast more difficult to edit.